Have you ever been gaming or working online classes and your internet service constantly gets interrupted? First Nations Fiber is about to ensure that just won't happen again. Get ready for high speed at a new level. Click on fnfiber.com and sign up today. First Nations Fiber, empowering people through connectivity.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to this episode of Kwakaratón. We are sharing our stories with you, the Kahnawake Tourism Podcast. I'll be hosting today. My name's Kimberly Ganyet Cross. I'm the Tourism Development Manager at Kahnawake Tourism. And today we're going to be talking about the Indigenous Fashion Collective. And what is that? Today in studio, we have Daibo, who is one of our local designers. And we have on the phone with us Jason Picard-Binet, who is a business owner of a moccasin factory, Bastille Industries, from Wendake.
Hi.
So welcome you two to our podcast. I'm really happy to have you guys with us today. You've been doing some pretty interesting things in terms of Indigenous fashion within the industry. So I wanted to bring you on and let our listeners know, our people from Kahnawake and our non-native friends who are listening, maybe some tourists, what is it that we're doing, what you're doing, and how it's important to not just fashion, but all the different industries that are related within fashion. Mm-hmm. So I was really inspired by an event that was held in Montreal. So during Montreal Fashion Week, you had the first First Nations designers fashion show at the Palais de Congres. And an Indigenous Fashion Collective was formed. So that's pretty cool. So first, before we start, can you, we could start with Garunyahawe. Can you introduce yourself? Let us know who you are.
My name is Garunyahawe Daibo. I'm from Kahnawake. I'm Bear Clan. And I am the owner and designer for She Holds the Sky Designs.
And Jason, can you introduce yourself too?
Yeah, sure. Hi. My name is Jason. I'm the owner of Bastille Industries, a young startup that started crafting moccasins here in Wendake in 1878. So I took over the business in 2022, and we're crafting over 45,000 pair of mocks that we're selling across Canada. But prior to that, I have been involved for 15 years in tourism, mostly Indigenous tourism. So we know each other for a long time, Kim.
Yeah, we have. So can you tell us about the event that happened in September, on September 20th? And I'll let you guys jump in as you feel like it.
Well, I'll give it to Jason. He's brought me in.
Well, what happened is last year on December of last year, I won an award as the Indigenous Entrepreneur of the Year for La Grappe Mode of Montreal, which is sort of the association in charge of fashion across the province of Quebec. And after that, I've been invited to being part of the Montreal Fashion Week that was taking place at the end of September. So when I started thinking what would be my activation and how I can, promote my company and promote my craft through the Montreal Fashion Week, I started thinking, well, I didn't feel comfortable, mixing my business with a non-Indigenous business or a bigger non-Indigenous brand and feeling like, tokenism. So I wanted something like 100% authentic. And I just feel that we should create a collective and create and showcase the knowledge of all the Indigenous designers we have in Quebec. And that's how it started. I reached out to a couple of designers that I know around who reached out to other Indigenous designers that they knew. And finally, we ended up being 7 Indigenous designers from different communities. And we brought together a fashion show. And all of that event was created within 6 weeks. So it was kind of running after the clock every day. But we made it. And a big thanks to Garunyahawe, because she already organized a fashion show in Kahnawake a couple of weeks before. So we had some know-how about fashion shows there.
Yeah, she's been doing quite a few things in our community for fashion. It's really exciting. Who was part of the collective?
Well, we were obviously Fashion Industries and She Holds the Skies, but also with us we had Adigush, who's creating mock locks and also different accessories and leather. She's from the Quebec North Coast She's an Innu. Also, we had Mikunis Collections, who's from Mastoyash, and Machishu Creation, who's also from Mastoyash. We also had Mini TP from the Outaouais region. And am I missing others? Oh, we have Jolene Robichaud also, who's from Montreal.
Mm-hmm.
Very cool.
She's a Mi'kmaq.
Cool.
Mi'kmaq, yeah.
So you said how you inspired that, like getting everybody together, and I think it's inspiring for other organizations and other initiatives to get our people talking to each other and getting those movements forwards. It's something we're doing in tourism also. We started talking with our Haudenosaunee communities, and we're starting this little tourism network of what are we doing in our communities and what are the best practices and, what are we doing to develop. So I think there's such a good movement within, Turtle Island and all of our people going forward. So I guess how are you, both of you, involved in the collective moving forward and then with the event?
So for me, Raphael Langvin, she invited me to the collective. She asked me if I would be interested in producing some designs for the show. And so I was like, of course, yeah, it sounds like a lot of fun. And then as I came more to get to know everybody, they start asking me to help out more with the planning. And I was like, of course, like this is right up my alley. Like I've already been doing this. So why not? Like I already have the contacts. I already know like where to go and who to get. And what works best for these types of shows because it's such a fast-paced process.
Mm-hmm.
So for the show, I did get a majority of the models, which were local, so they didn't really have to travel too far. Hair, makeup, stage director, just organizing those things, making sure everybody's on the same page, everybody's organized. And that, to me, is fun. And that's what I love so much about, my job and doing the behind the scenes. And also it's a learning curve for a lot of the designers who maybe not have done a show before, because we did have a mini TP that was her first show ever. So for her, she's like, oh my gosh, like I learned so much.
It's a big show to be a part of for your first one.
And I looked at her, I said, are you sure this is your first show? I said, because you're killing it. Like you're doing such an amazing job. And she's like, yeah, but she's like, once you get like that taste of that, it's an excitement. And it's like, you get to meet people and you get to just, it's a lot of fun. It's high stress, but it's good stress, so I find like that inspires people to keep coming back because, and to just keep growing. And I hope that moving forward with the collective, like we can have more designers join us, we can reach other parts of Quebec. And I think it's needed, there's, I think a lot of, non-Indigenous people maybe kind of see us as one clump of people. And, I think the beauty in this collective is to show them that we all come from different communities and we all have different traditions. We have different
unique designs.
Yes. And beadwork, even like I was blown away by the beadwork, by the leather work and the fur that was there. I was like, oh my gosh, like I love all of this. So
it's so true. Whenever I travel and you look all over the styles and the craftsmanship that go into everything, and there's so many similarities, but they're so different at the same time. And everything has a story that goes with it.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. I'm so, I'm very excited and to see where this will take us.
Yeah, well, on my side, my involvement, the idea of creating that collective sparks in my mind, and then I was more in charge of the finance. I was that annoying guy up to the toes of the different government people trying to secure funding, and this is why we've been able to create that event in such a small period of time. It's because 6 weeks prior to the event, finally, I got an answer from the Fed that they secure funding for making this happen.
They can't make it easy.
Well, we know the reality of working with government people, right? And after that, the general manager of the Palais de Congres in Montreal, she's a good friend of mine too. She used to work for Destination Canada in tourism. So I reached out to her. I told her, hey, we have this amazing group of people who want to create something unique about Indigenous fashions. We don't have a lot of money, but do you have any place in the Palais de Congres that could host us? And fortunately, they hosted us almost for free. So we've been able to secure secure the spot. And at the same time, then our fashion events, there was One Young World conference, which is an event sponsored by UN, regrouping over 2,000 delegates from over 190 countries, and where also the Indigenous culture was at the first place. So it was a big add-on for them, and it was a big add-on for us as well, of having this big group of people in the same building than us. And after that, we started crafting like a programming, because of course the highlight of this event was the fashion show. But prior to this fashion show, we had an amazing conference for 2 days where we were talking about cultural appropriation versus cultural appreciation, cooperative models, with an Indigenous PhD who started a co-op with the Atikamekw Nation. Also, reconciliation through clothing. We had another conference about sustainable resources, and we were taking the case of Mikunis Creation from Valérie Larouche, who started working with an organization to craft salmon leather and also other fish leather. So she's taking all the fish that are fished in the Lac Saint-Jean, and she's working with the hide and started crafting different clothing through that hide. And also we had a conference about the success story of Mini TP, and finally one last one, and that was pretty major. We had this very, very famous Montreal designer, Jean-Claude Poitras, who started to work with the event Kway, and they presented their big project for Kway 2025 that's going to be taking place in Quebec City. So where Jean-Claude took like 11 pieces of cloth through his career that was very famous, and he worked with 11 Indigenous artists to rebrand those pieces of clothes with the representing like their culture and their individual territories. So that was pretty amazing. And obviously the fashion show we hosted, we were sold out, right?
So I know, I tried to go.
We've been able to get it sold out. We hosted close to 400 people. So we had all kind of people around the fashion industry who was there. So that was just amazing.
That's so exciting. So it happened at the same time as Montreal Fashion Week? Yeah. So how did it feel being, part of that and being part of an event at Palais de Congres? I mean, that's next level stuff.
Well, that being my second official fashion week participating in, it's a totally different feeling though. From the first one in New York City to this one, it was, I felt more in control. I felt more comfortable because, I had a lot of my peers and I had a lot of people that I knew. And also the collective, was really, really great to work with. They were very easygoing to work with. And so I think that's why it was so successful. And also just being able to bring that to Montreal, to have just an Indigenous fashion show. We did have so many attendees that were non-Indigenous, and they were really impressed. Like I could see a lot of people interested. They wanted to know more. They wanted to learn about these different designers and their brands. And, I think that's really the whole point of it, is just to educate people, And, it was on top of that, it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun too.
Yeah. You're educating other people, but also our own people. A lot of people don't know what our clothing was, and it's evolved so much throughout time. Yeah. And to look at it and what it is now, and how can we incorporate it into everyday life? It's really been like a resurgence, I think, in the past. I don't know, I'm not that old, so I can't say that long, but I've noticed it, let's say in the past 20 years, where you saw more women wearing earrings. I kind of started with that. And before it was like, oh, you just wear your traditional outfits at graduation. Exactly. And more people are wearing them to ceremonies. And every day you see people in ribbon skirts or ribbon shirts or moccasins, and like our clothes are being normalized. So sure. Yeah, I like it's more than just, fashion, high end. You're really changing that narrative of like what's normal for our people to be wearing our clothes all over, and not looked at like, oh, if you're walking in the city with your moccasins, like, oh, somebody's wearing their slippers.
Yeah. Well, really, I think all of the designers can agree that were a part of the show is that, they're making their clothing for our people to be proud of,
Mm-hmm.
to wear, you know, in versatile situations, like whether it's for work or for ceremony or for, you know, anything in your life.
A lot of formal too that
A
you
lot of
see.
formal, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like you always want to represent yourself. And I think that we did a really good job at expressing that.
I think so. I saw the pictures. I mean, it looked pretty amazing.
Mm-hmm.
So as designers, how do you see non-Indigenous people who are wearing our clothing? So we said we're making it normal. We're out there. We're maybe selling it at powwows or in different shops. And Jason, your moccasins are all over in the country. How do you see when people are wearing our items, a lot of our non-Indigenous people who are buying, let's say, moccasins or clothing, they're always on that teetering point. Is it appropriation or, like what you said, appreciation? How can people differentiate and be our advocates, right? If they're wearing our items, how do you see that? And how can you give that advice to our neighbors, our friends, you know, from settler countries who are coming? And how do you give that advice of appreciation or appropriation?
Well, for me, seeing non-Indigenous people wearing my product and wearing my moccasins is a pride, is a fact that at one point I feel Indigenous clothing have been able to break that glass ceiling and create a certain economy through our clothing and through our fashion. And if we have non-Indigenous people, and I would say non-Indigenous supporters, supporting us with our creation, is just a feeling of pride. And the big difference with cultural appropriation is, when I look, especially in the moccasin business, there's so many non-Indigenous moccasin factories across Canada and across US. Like, to be honest, like 100% of my competition is non-Indigenous. But look out there, how they're using our symbols, our wording, everything related to Indigenous people to make people think that what they're wearing is authentic. This is the biggest problem with cultural appropriation, and the problem in Canada is we don't have any law protecting us against that cultural appropriation. I'm also selling to the U.S., where the U.S. government has like an official stamp where if you get caught doing some cultural appropriation on behalf of Indigenous cultures, you can have up to 5 years in prison, because the government recognized that it has a huge economical impact on Indigenous communities, where our government here doesn't recognize. And by having those non-Indigenous people taking the time to understand who we are and wearing our authentic piece of clothes and being able to tell their friends and their family, well, this piece of shirt comes from, for example, this lady from this nation who's coming from this community. Well, it's a sense of promoting our culture and who we are. So, well, from my perspective, it's a real pride of seeing non-Indigenous people wearing my moccasins. And I would love to see more. I would love to see some rightful law about the to protect us against cultural appropriation, because I have here like a document from a PhD in sociology in BC who made a research prior to the Olympic Games of Vancouver, who was expecting a loss of over $100 million per year for Indigenous people in BC because of cultural appropriation. So can you imagine nationwide in 2024? We're probably losing billions of dollars because of those big fashion companies.
And I think you even we're losing our own people dollars, like within our own circle economy, where we have
100%.
like companies
100%.
marketing to us with our imagery, and it's hard to differentiate, and you have to really investigate to see, is this a real artist or is this just appropriation, like a company taking advantage of me?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and I mean, every week I get a message on my Instagram of our own people saying, hey, you're doing cultural appropriation. at least we have those people who's, scanning the internet and trying to pinpoint those ones who's making cultural appropriation. It makes me laugh because I'm the only 100% Indigenous owned and operated moccasin factory in Canada. But after chatting with those people, I'm like, hey, we're in an Indigenous community. We're legit. But yeah, I mean, the economical impact is huge, and for a company who's hiring our people, thinking of Mini TP, we have, over 20-25 employees. We're taking our own people in our business. We're training them. We're creating jobs in our community. And this is what Indigenous economy should be from my perspective. Cultural appropriation is a shame, but without non-Indigenous supporters, we can't make it as a business also.
Yeah. And I think it's even it's important the Indigenous businesses from the different communities consider that as well. We're trying to, I know for tourism, when we're doing our promotions and we're promoting our local businesses, we want to say, well, no, it's local made, it's Indigenous made, it's not made in China. But it's hard to find those items sometimes, like you said, it's a small business, it's a small economy that we have, that we're growing. And I think a lot of, point of sale areas, they might find it difficult to find those, or they might be falling under those same marketing schemes of purchasing things that they think might be Indigenous made, but they're really not.
And I think the important thing to note is also, yes, it's great that we have non-Indigenous supporters that want to buy our products, but also to the importance of educating them on what they're used for.
Yeah.
I've had some clients in the past that are non-Indigenous ask me for certain types of regalias, and I just I don't feel comfortable making and selling that to somebody like that. That would, I don't know what they're using it for. If they're gonna be like, yep, I'm pretending,
and then go to somewhere else maybe and start dancing in a powwow.
Exactly. I think it's important to kind of the products that we're putting out to sell to non-Indigenous people, that they're appropriate. From an Indigenous person's point of view. I don't know how I would feel about selling something that would have a ceremonial use or something very important to us and that someone could just buy. I just feel like there's a fine line there. And, but when it comes to fashion, there's definitely ways around it. And there's definitely ways to make it appropriate to sell things like that. And like Jason said, we would not have, our businesses probably would not thrive without our non-Indigenous customers. Mind you, a lot of my clothing I make, I don't think too many non-Indigenous people would be wearing it.
Yeah.
But I definitely do have that clientele. They do contact me. I do work with them and try to educate them the best way I can. Look, this is what I think is great for you to wear. And I do appreciate you coming to me for it, because I wouldn't want you to go somewhere else and have someone that's not Indigenous making that for you, So, I think it's just, there's an importance to very, to make sure people know that.
Yeah. It's exactly what you said, educating. And even when we're out and doing different outreach events, we have people asking us those questions. Well, if I were to buy a ribbon skirt, I've had that question to myself off of a designer, is it okay that I wear it? And I said, well, if you understand the story of the ribbon skirt and why women wear skirts, and if you're wearing it, you have to be mindful when you're wearing it. You have to be respectful. You have to be a good person while you're wearing it. You can't be doing all sorts of things. So those teachings go along with it, like you said. So it's, and I don't know if everybody does that, if you're selling at all these different events, our vendors need to keep that in mind. If you're selling something, really tell them what it's for and what are the purposes, how do you use it, what's accepted and not accepted, so that we don't get those misconceptions and the appropriation going all over the place. So that kind of goes into my next question then for you guys. So I know, Jason, you mentioned we've known each other for a while working in tourism. So I wanted to ask you two, how do you think that this Indigenous collective that you've began, Indigenous Fashion, how is that related to tourism?
Well, for me, it's 100% related to tourism, because telling our culture and telling our history through clothing is part of a tourism experience, and also what visitors want to see when they're visiting Indigenous community. First, they want to learn our history, they want to learn our culture, but also they want to see how we make our things. and by taking the time to explain to our customers how we craft our product and how they're made, and how we keep the tradition within our modern business, I would say, is a way of promoting also our individual Indigenous cultures and territories and communities. So for me, it's definitely part of an experience. But as I keep saying, at one point, I see so many Indigenous designers popping up all over the province and all over the country. I think the fashion business is mature for having their own association. So I keep saying we should start IFAC instead of ITAC. So ITAC stands for Indigenous Tourism Association of Canada. So we should start Indigenous Fashion Industries of Canada.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, coming from an industry that grew so fast in the last 20 years in Indigenous communities, and when I jumped into that new venture of fashion and clothing, I was like, oh, okay, we break some doors and we're ready to thrive as Indigenous people. And then I went into that brand new industry for me, and I was like, oh my gosh, we're 20 years behind what's going on with tourism.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to start over, but yeah, I'm ready for this challenge, and this is why it started small as this Indigenous collective, but honestly, the idea and the goal with that new collective is this year we want to create a nonprofit organization with that.
Mm-hmm.
We want to create clear rules of who can be a member, who cannot,
mm-hmm.
and we want to really gather all the Indigenous designers of Turtle Island and being a reference. So when someone in the fashion industry, whether retailers or media, is contacting us, then we could dispatch to the right designers or to the right company, and we are 100% sure that what they will say and what they will present is authentic and accurate.
Yeah, for sure.
I love that you said that. That was going into my next point in my notes. So my colleague Bronwyn, she couldn't come on today. We double booked, so she's somewhere else. And one of her things that she wanted to mention do you see this as going as something of Turtle Island? Like what you said, mm-hmm. the Indigenous Fashion Association or Collective of Turtle Island. And I love that you brought it up, because it's important that we stand together as all Indigenous people and not just label as Canada or US. Mm-hmm. Our people go beyond borders.
Yeah, for sure.
So pulling us all together and marketing it as more Turtle Island, made on Turtle Island. We are the original people, kind of like how they did in New Zealand with, rebranding their entire country, like their territory as Aotearoa. And I don't know if I said that right or wrong. I hope I said it right. But how they took that stance. They have that strength and pride within their identity. And I would love to see that. Even through this, I think it's starting for sure. You mm-hmm. have that motivation. You guys are inspired. It's coming.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm really happy you brought it up, because it went right into what I wanted to say.
Yeah, I mean, just in the last 10 years that I've been involved in the fashion industry, it's changed so rapidly, and it's going in the right direction. You see it so much. You see so many, I would say, kind of like how we would split up like the medicine wheel, like as an imagery. We have the North, we have the Southwest, we have the East Coast, and we're all kind of branching together to make it bigger, because we have people traveling to different fashion shows, different events, and it's not so much that we're like, oh, well, I only want to work with this type of designer. And it's like, no, I want to work with all of you because I love all of your work, and it represents me, and it represents, not just my nation, but your nation. And it's, it's such a cool thing to see, and, to be able to kind of market it as, okay, it's Indigenous made, or mm-hmm. it's made on Turtle Island. It's not Canadian, and it's not American. It's not
labeling us.
No. And it's like, we have to do that, mm-hmm. And I think with the Fashion Collective, we're heading in that direction. And I think it's more or less that because it's growing so fast, we just have to get organized. We have to jump on that ship. And, maybe that's, something that we can learn to do from our Indigenous brothers and sisters that we're, we can head in that direction. It's definitely attainable. We just need to, I guess, organize ourselves. And we're, I think we're doing a pretty good job this far.
Well, from my perspective, I know I had this conversation with Brown and we kind of agree and disagree at the same time, because currently on my product and on my boxes is labeled made in Canada. And the problem I have as a manufacturer shipping worldwide is so many of my products are copied in China or any other countries. It's hard for me to just label made in Wendake or proudly Wendat, where a Japanese is buying my product and have no clue of what is Wendake or what is the Wendat people. I'm 300% a supporter of that, and I would be able to follow the lead. But
you're stuck in that.
As a private business, as a private business making business with the rest of the world, it's hard for me to be a leader in that. And taking example with New Zealand is their government started and then the business followed. And if the AFN, for example, is urging all the businesses and started to create that awareness that we should be proud of promoting the territory or who we are, and the fact that if we start first and foremost with an authentic Indigenous label recognized nationwide and worldwide, then it will help. And from there, we could probably put some information about our individual nations and cultures and communities. But yeah, that's my reality as a manufacturer. And am I happy of writing made in Canada on my box? Not necessarily, but one thing for sure is I'm more happy to sell my product proudly made in Wendake or Canada than any other boxes that I see on retailers with the made in China stamps on it. So, yeah.
And that's a lot of the challenges that we face, and not just in fashion. And it's like you said, it's our realities as First Nations peoples. So it's nice you'll be at least addressing those things within the collective and having that supportive spaces where you can have those discussions. So I'm going to end off our podcast in the next couple of minutes. And I just want to ask you guys, do you have any upcoming events? When's the next fashion show? Do you know?
For myself, I don't know. I kind of took some time for myself. Like for the last 8 years, it's just been like constant work. And, I have applied to different shows. So it's all like a waiting game. But as for the collective, I'm willing and ready, whenever they want to do the next thing. And I do have some ideas, but it's all about, I know how busy everybody is and just getting organized and getting the funding and everything like that. So, really I'm waiting for the next opportunity.
Well, I know that once we have our new Cultural Center Theater Museum, we're definitely calling you. We're going to have one there.
There's actually, we were in talks with Scott Berwick. I do have to get back to him. Sorry, Scott, if you hear that. It's just been so crazy, but definitely we're working on something for that, and it's going to be exciting. And I think working with the collective, I think that's something we can also incorporate would be perfect.
Yeah, well, for Bastien, the next big thing is Paris. So we're launching Bastien brand in Paris in the end of November. So we have a launch plan in the Canada Embassy in Paris. So that's going to be the next big thing for me personally. But for the collective, we're just right now doing a postmortem of the event. I think it's super positive on many points. Now it's a matter of creating the whole structure and getting the funding. But definitely look forward to be at the Montreal Fashion Week next year, but hopefully to secure other venues through the year. We'll see, and also invite other Indigenous designers. I mean, this year we were 7, but who knows? That next year we might be 20. And that's my biggest hope. Honestly, I want to be part of the largest Indigenous collective on Turtle Island. And yeah.
What about? Sorry, I just want to throw in there the Mad Festival that you mentioned in our chat. I don't know who posted it in our chat, but I believe someone mentioned that we were invited to the Mad Festival, the collective. So that takes place in the summertime in Montreal. So I think that's, something to keep in mind for the future.
So is there any way that people can follow you guys, the collective? Is there a Facebook page or a website or anything, an email?
We're on it.
So if you're listening, then we will share any information we have on our tourism website when we do get information from either Kwakaratón or Jason or the collective as its whole. And we'll be sure to share that with all the different designers we know and with our different networks because it's so important. And I want to congratulate the both of you. Yeah. Jason, in the short time I've known you, like you've grown so much as not just a business person, but as a person. And it's great in the way that you've grown. Thanks. And same with Kwakaratón. I mean, we've known each other since we were both summer students. And I remember when I was the assistant to the summer student program and you were working with Tammy Bova and just starting out and learning how to work the machines and you've excelled from there, you know, like full 360. It's amazing in your growth and your success. So congratulations to both of you. And thank you guys for coming on our podcast. It was super interesting, super informative and inspiring. So Nyawakoa. And Nyawakoa for everybody for listening today on our Indigenous Fashion Collective podcast on Kwakaratón. And I hope you listen in next time and follow for more information on everything we're doing at Kwakaratón Tourism. Go to our website to see any of our activities and for more information on the collective when we have it on.
The views and opinions of the guests expressed in this podcast do not reflect those of Iorì and its employees.